Have you ever walked into your living room and felt a slight weight on your shoulders without knowing exactly why? Maybe it's the extra table in the corner, the stacks of unopened mail on your desk, or those shirts in your closet you haven't worn in years. For many people, the process of accumulating stuff begins quietly and grows more noticeable over time. By the time you're approaching your 70s, the real question becomes, are these items enhancing your life or are they quietly draining it? It's an uncomfortable realization. In our youth, we gather everything we think we might someday need: multiple sets of dishes, random gadgets, piles of books, keepsakes from every stage of life. But there's a point when these objects can become more of a burden than a blessing. You might not even realize how much they weigh you down until a moment arrives. Maybe you try to find a rarely used item in the closet, or you stumble on an old coffee table at night. Then you ask yourself, why do I still have all this stuff? In this video, we're diving into 6 categories of household items that may be quietly adding stress and clutter to your everyday life. We'll explore the emotional stories behind them, talk about the subtle health and safety issues they introduce, and share strategies for letting go without feeling like you're losing something important. It's never too late to create a space that feels open and free, even if it means rethinking items you've had for years or decades. I invite you to keep an open mind. Some of the suggestions might surprise you, especially if you've grown attached to certain objects for sentimental reasons. But the goal here isn't to pressure you to become a minimalist overnight. It's to help you think about how each item in your home either serves you or ends up costing you energy. With a little bit of courage and reflection, you might find that letting go can be one of the most freeing experiences, helping you enjoy a clearer, simpler environment well into your later years. Have you ever tried to walk from one end of your living room to the other and realized you're practically navigating a mini obstacle course? Maybe there's a sagging armchair in the corner that no one has used for months, or a heavy bookshelf you haven't touched in years. You don't even notice these things day to day. Until you do, they're just there, taking up space and gathering dust, possibly making each step a little more cramped. One reason old furniture is so easy to ignore is that it blends into our familiar surroundings. We get used to seeing it, maneuvering around it, and dusting it off occasionally. Yet each piece of furniture that's no longer serving a practical purpose can cause subtle inconveniences. You might stub your toe on the corner of a coffee table or feel cramped when you try to host a friend for tea. Sometimes all it takes is a visiting loved one to say, "Hey, do you really need 2 couches in this small room?" for it to finally click. Take the story of Patricia, who's 71 and lived in the same house for almost 4 decades. Over those years, she collected different pieces of furniture whenever there was a sale at her favorite store or when friends offered her their old items. At first, it seemed practical: extra storage here, an extra chair there. But soon, her living space was so densely packed that walking from the living room to the kitchen required navigating a narrow path. Patricia loved each piece because it reminded her of different phases in her life: her children's teenage years, her late husband's reading chair, the dining table she bought on a whim. But she finally realized that many of these items had become an emotional anchor rather than a functional tool. Cleaning around them took hours, and rearranging them for any event became a massive chore. One weekend, Patricia decided it was time for a deep, thoughtful declutter. She went piece by piece, asking herself if she genuinely used or needed it. If the answer was no, she'd let it go. The old reading chair, gone to a charity that helps furnish homes for families in need. The bulky dining table that seated 8, even though she lived alone, donated to a community center. Suddenly, her living spaces opened up. The change was almost immediate. It felt like someone had removed an invisible weight from her shoulders. Now, she moves around freely, cleans more easily, and actually enjoys the furniture that remains. You might think, but I'm not collecting endless pieces of furniture. And maybe you aren't. However, even a single large piece that's never used can still clutter your space and mind. If there's a table nobody sits at, or a sofa that's essentially a dumping ground for random objects, it might be time to reconsider its place in your home. Letting go of old furniture doesn't mean you're throwing away memories. It means you're making room for new experiences and ensuring your home is as functional and comfortable as possible. As you continue on this journey of decluttering, keep in mind, everything you choose to keep should serve a purpose, whether practical or emotional. If it's neither, it might just be dragging you down. But if you think oversized sofas and dusty chairs are all that's clogging your home, just wait. Sometimes the clutter that weighs us down comes in softer, more personal forms, like the clothes we keep just in case. Stand in front of your closet for a moment. Is it packed with clothes you haven't worn in ages, pants that haven't fit for years, or dresses you're saving for a special occasion you honestly can't recall? Clothes can hold a deep emotional sway over us. Each garment might be tied to a memory, a wedding, a birthday, the time you felt especially confident. But over time, it's easy to accumulate far more than we actually need or wear. Many people hold onto clothing out of optimism or nostalgia. Perhaps you think you'll lose the weight needed to fit into those jeans again, or you might want to wear that old suit once you finally have a reason to dress up. In reality, these may be one day items often live at the back of the closet, neglected and forgotten. The more clothes you have cluttering your wardrobe, the harder it is to pick out an outfit each day. Not to mention, the extra upkeep, laundering, storing, reorganizing can become overwhelming. Consider Raymond, age 69. He used to be a traveling salesman and spent years in dress shirts, slacks, and polished shoes. Now retired, he mostly wears casual attire, comfortable pants, and a few well-worn t-shirts. Still, his closet is filled with row after row of professional outfits he rarely touches. Each piece represents a memory. That big conference in Dallas, the trip to Boston where he landed a large client, the first time he was recognized as a top salesperson. Letting go of those clothes almost felt like letting go of his achievements. But one day, while sifting through the clutter, he realized the suits didn't define him. He was proud of his past, but those clothes no longer played a role in his present life. He donated most of them to a local charity that helps people prepare for job interviews. Not only did Raymond free up physical space, but he felt an emotional lightness as well. He said it was as though he was finally embracing his current chapter rather than clinging to the old one. You might not be a traveling salesperson, but chances are you have clothes you're keeping just in case. Maybe it's a pair of shoes that pinch your feet every time you wear them, yet you keep telling yourself they'll break eventually. Or perhaps it's an entire pile of t-shirts from events that happened decades ago, now used primarily to fill your drawer with no practical purpose at all. Here's a simple strategy. Pick a day to review every item in your wardrobe. Ask yourself if it still fits, if it's comfortable, if you've worn it in the past year, and if it still reflects who you are now. If the answer is no, it might be time to let it go. The benefit: a closet filled only with clothing you actually wear and enjoy, making it faster and simpler to get dressed each day. And consider donating the rest, so someone else can benefit from garments that would otherwise gather dust. Of course, clothing isn't the only kind of clutter that sneaks up on us. Sometimes the most overlooked items are in the very places we go for our well-being, like our medicine cabinets. Let's move on and see how expired pills and old toiletries can crowd our lives in more ways than one. Peek inside your bathroom cabinet. How many bottles and boxes do you see? Is there a dusty bottle of pain reliever you bought ages ago, or half-used prescription meds from a health issue you dealt with years back? Maybe there's an old bottle of aftershave or face cream hidden behind the newer products. These everyday items can create significant clutter because we so rarely think to toss them out. Medications are especially concerning. Many people keep leftover prescriptions just in case, not realizing that medications lose effectiveness and can sometimes become risky if used past their expiration date. That old antibiotic you stashed away after a sinus infection 2 years ago might be ineffective now. Or worse, it could complicate a future illness if not taken properly. Over-the-counter meds like painkillers, cold remedies, or antacids also lose potency. Holding on to them doesn't just waste space. It could pose a real health risk if you grab the wrong bottle in a hurry. Similarly, cosmetics and toiletries like creams, lotions, or makeup can carry hidden expiry dates. Products that sit unused for years can harbor bacteria or simply degrade, causing skin irritation. Some lotions or face creams even have shorter lifespans once opened, especially those with natural or organic ingredients. Yet, most of us have trouble parting with these items. We keep them because we don't want to waste them, or we think we might use them one day, long after we've lost interest or found a better alternative. Take Marion, for example, a 74-year-old who prides herself on staying organized. But one day, she noticed she had to rummage through multiple half-empty bottles of shampoo and boxes of expired cold meds to find something as simple as an adhesive bandage. When she finally took inventory, she discovered that 80% of what she'd been storing was expired or no longer useful. The sense of relief she felt after decluttering that small bathroom space was enormous. She could finally see and reach what she needed with ease. If you're unsure about what to do with expired medications, most pharmacies or community health centers can advise you on safe disposal methods. Some places even have designated drop-off points for old pills. Simply tossing them in the trash can be hazardous, so do check local guidelines. But the bigger point is, there's no benefit to keeping meds you won't safely use. And when it comes to old toiletries, if you haven't touched them in a year, or if you can't recall when you bought them, it's probably time to let go. Letting your medicine cabinet breathe can save you from confusion and possible health mistakes. It's a small but meaningful step toward creating a safer, more efficient home. But clutter often hides in even more mundane corners, like stacks of paper we accumulate without noticing. Let's talk about how that seemingly harmless habit can become a major source of stress over time. Paper clutter is sneaky. A few old receipts here, a couple of utility bills there, and before you know it, you've got towering piles of documents you barely glance at. Many of us keep papers just in case we need to revisit an old warranty or double check a payment. But the reality is, we typically don't look at these piles again, and digital record keeping has made many physical documents unnecessary. Old papers can create not just physical clutter, but also mental tension. Think of the anxiety that bubbles up when you see an unopened envelope on the table, even if it's just a piece of junk mail or a bill you already paid online. Those mountains of paper remind you of tasks you may or may not have completed, obligations that might be overdue, or decisions you've been putting off. Each piece of paper can represent a silent burden, the what-if factor that keeps lingering in your mind. Harold, a 68-year-old retired teacher, realized he had every payslip from his 30-year career stuffed in boxes, plus old bank statements and credit card bills from over a decade ago. He also kept years' worth of holiday greeting cards, random receipts for small purchases, and even user manuals for appliances he no longer owned. The clutter took up 2 entire closets, making it impossible to store anything else there. One day, he embarked on a mission to reclaim this space. He shredded outdated financial documents, organized and digitized important ones like birth certificates, and recycled old greeting cards. Harold managed to free up both physical space and a sense of calm. Perhaps you haven't let it get that far, but if you open a drawer or a shoebox and find receipts from 5 years ago for a long broken blender, it's time for a change. Modern life offers plenty of digital solutions: electronic bank statements, online billing, scanned copies of important records that reduce the need for keeping stacks of paper. As for mail, establish a simple system. Open all letters the day they arrive. Discard junk immediately, set aside important bills to pay, and file anything you truly must keep. You'll find that once you deal with the paper as it comes, the clutter never has a chance to pile up. You regain precious storage space and a sense of control over your administrative tasks. This approach also ensures that truly important papers, like current insurance documents or emergency contacts, are easy to locate at a moment's notice. But not all clutter is about business and bills. Some of it is purely practical, like the pots, pans, and kitchen gadgets we never use. If you think your cookware situation is under control, read on. You might be surprised how much hidden clutter can lurk in the heart of your home. The kitchen is often considered the heart of a home, a place where meals and memories are made. Yet it can also become a dumping ground for gadgets, gizmos, and cookware we thought we'd use, but never do. Maybe you picked up a spiralizer during a health kick or inherited multiple sets of holiday-themed serving platters you bring out once in a blue moon. Then there are random coffee mugs that keep appearing, plastic takeout containers that multiply in your cabinets, and specialty pans meant for complicated dishes you rarely cook. Why do these items pile up? Often, it's tied to aspiration. We picture ourselves hosting fancy dinner parties, baking elaborate desserts, or cooking gourmet meals. In reality, our everyday cooking routine is much simpler, and many of these specialized tools remain untouched. Also, because kitchen items can be hidden behind cabinet doors, it's easy to ignore them until it's time to find a specific pot or pan. That's when you realize you're digging through layers of rarely used items to get to the one you actually need. Consider Mark and Lydia, a couple in their early 70s who love to cook. Over the years, They collected every kitchen gadget imaginable. They had 3 different slow cookers, 2 air fryers, several blenders, and shelves packed with fancy dinnerware. The trouble was their storage space was limited, and they spent more time organizing and cleaning than actually enjoying cooking together. Whenever they hosted a small gathering, it turned into a mini production just to clear counter space. Eventually, they decided enough was enough. Mark suggested they keep only what they genuinely used at least a few times a month. This meant donating the 3rd slow cooker, giving away the large air fryer that no one touched for nearly a year, and getting rid of chipped mugs and mismatched glasses that cluttered the cupboards. The result? They felt a renewed energy in the kitchen, with less crowding the counters and fewer items to maintain. Mark and Lydia found cooking more enjoyable and less chaotic. They also discovered how freeing it was not to worry about the avalanche of unused gadgets every time they open a cupboard. If your kitchen feels overstuffed, try this simple exercise. Open each drawer and cabinet and pull out everything. Set aside what you use regularly in one section. In another section, place the items you haven't touched in over a year. Be honest, if you never used that expensive juicer or that fancy panini press, it might be time to pass it along to someone who will appreciate it. You'll soon discover that a streamlined kitchen makes cooking more relaxing and cleanup less daunting. But even after clearing away unnecessary kitchen gadgets, many people find the hardest clutter to tackle is the stuff that tugs at their heartstrings. Souvenirs, old gifts, and items connected to memories. Let's talk about how sentimental clutter can weigh you down and how to find the balance between cherishing memories and living more freely. Sentiment is a powerful force. We keep items that remind us of precious moments or beloved people, old photo albums, childhood mementos, trinkets from vacations, and gifts that once touched our hearts. Over the years, this collection can grow to fill entire closets, boxes, and drawers. Some of us keep so many sentimental objects that it's nearly impossible to enjoy them. They end up hidden away, gathering dust, instead of bringing happiness into our daily lives. One reason sentimental clutter is hard to part with is fear. Fear that letting go of the item means letting go of the memory. In reality, your memories aren't stored in a seashell from that beach trip 40 years ago. They're stored in you. The seashell is a reminder, but if it's part of 50 similar items stuffed in a box, its value as a keepsake diminishes. It simply becomes another thing to store, clean, or protect. Jean, a 75-year-old widow, grappled with this. Her late husband was a traveler who collected souvenirs from every country they visited. Jean felt compelled to keep all of them, even the ones they barely looked at. Over time, she accumulated boxes upon boxes of souvenirs and letters. There were so many items that she no longer had space to display the ones she truly loved. Each time she tried to reorganize, she'd become overwhelmed by emotion, deciding she couldn't possibly give anything away. Finally, with the help of a friend, she decided to be selective. She kept a small collection of truly meaningful souvenirs, displaying them where she could see them daily. She donated or gifted the rest to people who genuinely appreciated the objects. In doing so, Jean found that her fond memories didn't vanish. In fact, they stood out more clearly, unburdened by the clutter. When sorting sentimental items, it helps to set clear criteria. Ask yourself questions like, does this still make me happy when I see it? Will I realistically look at or use this again? And is there a way to capture the memory without keeping the object? Some people take photos of items or scan letters before letting them go, preserving the memory in a more compact, easily accessible format. Others create a single box or shelf dedicated to the most treasured belongings. The point is to avoid burying yourself in a sea of mementos, which can obscure the very memories you want to cherish. By being thoughtful and deliberate, you can keep the essence of the memories alive while freeing yourself from the physical burden. This final category of clutter is often the most emotionally challenging, but tackling it can offer the most profound sense of relief. Now, let's gather all these threads together and see how decluttering these items piece by piece can create a renewed sense of freedom and joy in your home and your heart. You've just traveled through 6 categories of clutter that could be silently draining your energy. Worn out furniture, rarely worn clothes, expired meds and toiletries, mountainous paper piles, underused kitchen gadgets, and sentimental keepsakes that no longer serve you. Each category is unique, but they share a common theme. At some point, these items shifted from valuable to burdensome, often without you even noticing. Remember, decluttering isn't about losing what matters. It's about making sure that what you keep genuinely contributes to your life. That might mean more room to walk around, a simpler morning routine, a safer bathroom setup, or the freedom to move through your living space without constantly sidestepping or shuffling through piles. It might mean being able to find what you need when you need it, whether that's a clothing item that fits, a medication that's up to date, or a sentimental object you truly cherish. The psychological benefits can be as profound as the practical ones. Removing the things that no longer support you also removes invisible stressors. You're likely to feel lighter, more energized, and clearer about what matters in your day-to-day life. You might even rediscover hobbies you've neglected, like cooking or reading, once there's space for them again. And by selectively keeping meaningful mementos, you honor your past in a way that fits your present. You've made it this far because you sense that it's time for a change. But don't think you need to tackle every closet, drawer, and shelf overnight. Consider doing it in small steps. Pick one category at a time, whether it's the wardrobe or the kitchen. Ask yourself critical questions. When did I last use this? Does it still serve a purpose? Would someone else benefit from it more than I do? Little by little, your living space will transform into a place that truly nurtures you. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these categories hits home the most? Maybe you've already tackled your clothes, but haven't dared to open that dusty filing cabinet. Or perhaps you've been hanging on to a pair of chairs that belong to your grandparents, even though they're too wobbly to use. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. If you decide to embark on this decluttering journey, consider letting us know how it goes. Each story can motivate someone else to take that first step toward a lighter, more fulfilling life. Most importantly, remember that your home should be a sanctuary, a place that supports you physically and mentally. Surround yourself with only those items that reflect your current needs, passions, and memories. By doing so, you open the door to greater freedom and peace of mind well into your 70s and beyond. Thank you for joining me on this journey of rediscovery, and I look forward to hearing about the spaces you reclaim and the fresh possibilities you uncover in the process.